hardcore rock and roll kind of thing, very up, sort of in your face kind of thing, and very brash and very hard rock, you know. And if we did a ballad, it would be something very slow and bluesy and druggy and depressing, whatever. But Sweet Child of Mine was the first up-tempo ballad we'd ever done. And so it was very poppy in that sense. And so it took me a while to get past that. And I play it now, and it's a lot of fun to play, and everybody loves it. But in those particular days, it just seems sort of the antithesis of what the band really was about, you know.
Is Paradise City still your favorite Guns song?
It's one of them, yeah. To me, Paradise City is very indicative of a certain period of Guns N' Roses where it really sort of, you know, it represents the band the way that it really should, you know. But, you know, I love all the Guns N' Roses stuff. So.
Really? Every single one?
Pretty much, yeah.
Which other ones in particular? Just
pretty much anything that we recorded I really like, because it has its own identifiable sound and certain kind of thing to it, which is as attractive to me as it has been to, you know, millions of people worldwide over the years. You know, if I wasn't in that band, it would have been my favorite band.
That's a good way to look at it. You know, Guns used to play sold-out arenas all over the world for years. Did you ever get sick of sort of playing the same songs night after night? I mean, you must have played Sweet Child thousands of times.
No, not that I recall, you know. There's something about, I think I'm blessed in the sense that I really, really dig playing, and the energy of every given night is different, you know. And so you sort of approach each show as a sort of a new day kind of thing. And there's certain ways of playing, or just getting better at playing the same song, or maybe finding stuff that you can play that you didn't play on the record that you might discover in the moment, you know, stuff like that. And so even to this day, I still love playing, you know, all the stuff that, whatever it is that I've been recording, I still really love playing it. Yeah. The only time I think I've ever gotten sick of playing Guns N' Roses songs really was after having played them in Guns N' Roses, and then in Snake Pit, and then playing It's So Easy in Brownstone and in Velvet Revolver, because even in clubs or whatever, where I could go up and jam, those were like the standard song that everybody knew and that everybody could sing. And I did get sick of playing those two songs. And at this point, I don't play them in our set, you know.
The other members of Guns N' Roses, Duff, Izzy, and Steven, have all contributed to your most recent album.
Right.
What was it like, you know, playing with them now as opposed to back in the day?
Well, I mean, you know, like Steven Adler was the one that I haven't played with in something like 20 years. And so that was a special day. It was actually Steven and Flea who played bass on that track. And the three of us all knew each other when we were first starting out. And we all used to hang out in the same neighborhood. So it was very cool all these years later, and everything that we've been through as established musicians, professional musicians, to go in and play. Because, you know, back in 1980 or whatever it was, Michael was playing trumpet, Steve was playing guitar, and I was just about to, because Steven played guitar before I did. He turned me on to the guitar. So there was this thing going on where we were all on bicycles or skateboards and about to become musicians, you know. So that was cool. And then, you know, working with Izzy, it was just that song really screamed Izzy to me. And it was nice to see him and hang out with him. I hadn't seen him in about a year or something. But we've done a lot of jamming over, you know, since he left Guns N' Roses back in '93 or whatever. And then Duff and I had been in Velvet Revolver this whole time. So it was one of those kind of things where working with Dave Grohl on this particular song, it just seemed the guy to call to play bass on that particular track was Duff. So it's, you know, good times, definitely.
Conspicuously absent, though, from that group is Axl Rose.
Right.
You know, things did get really rather nasty, it seems. Yeah, I suppose perpetuated as well by stuff that was said in the press and people just, you know, embellished.
Yeah, I mean, it gets blown out of proportion for sure. It doesn't, I mean, it's not something that I think about till somebody else brings it up.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow, but everybody must bring it up.
Yeah.
When's the last time you spoke to him?
It hasn't. I haven't spoken to him since I left the band still.
Is that 15 years?
It's been 14, 15 years, yeah.
Are you philosophical about everything that happened?
I really don't have any response to any Guns N' Roses questions having to do with that at this point, because it's redundant. You know, there's nothing. I mean, it's been a long time, so I don't really have anything to philosophize about it.
Yeah,
You know?
I guess.
It's really sort of a dead issue.
Still, though, I mean, Duff said actually really recently that as far as any reunion with the original lineup of Guns, never say never. What about you?
Well,
Do you
yeah,
say never?
I used to be really sort of negative about it because I just don't see it happening. But at the same time, you never know. I mean, a lot of things happen that you weren't expecting, so it's probably a little sort of negative of me to be completely like, it's not going to happen, sort of grinchy about it. But I mean, no efforts have been made to try and do anything about it, you know. So I guess you just leave it to chance. You know, maybe it could, maybe it won't, whatever.
Axel still obviously gets asked about it all the time, and he still sounds like it's really raw, particularly his anger for you. He recently called you a cancer, which sounds pretty bad, I think.
If we get into this conversation, we're going to be done. You know that.
Okay, fair enough.
Because I won't play that game. I'm not about to spend
no game playing
amount of time dwelling on that.
Indeed, absolutely. You did go from a huge, world-famous, massive success of a band and walked out. Was it difficult to get back on the horse after that?
No, I think when that happened, it was so difficult prior to that. So as soon as I walked out, it was a huge weight off my shoulders. So I was really sort of relieved. So the first thing I did was just spend the next, that was in 1996, so I spent the next four years just jamming, just out there enjoying that freedom. And then had some sort of health issues in 2001. But and then after that, then started putting a band together, and then suddenly got into this whole thing with Duff and Matt and doing Velvet Revolver, and did that obviously up until 2008, and then I've been doing this thing. So I managed to keep myself pretty busy. Yeah. So it's been good.
Coming up, sex, drugs, and rock and roll. Slash opens up about beating his addictions.
I was really done sort of, with that sort of merry-go-round of drugs and alcohol.
Despite all the good fortune that's come to you, you had this serious heroin addiction for years, and that was quite aside from the half-gallon plus vodka binge that you were doing on a daily basis. Where on earth did you find the time to do anything, and the wherewithal to do anything constructive?
Because I was a productive junkie. I think. My primary focus was always, I was driven by music, and so I did have these distractions, but I managed to be functional as best as I possibly could and stayed on top of it because I was really driven to do these things that I love to do. And that's always been the case with me. It's not necessarily the case with everybody. So I'm sort of fortunate that way. And that's probably what helped clean me up at the end of the day, was I started to get in the way of being able to do what it was that I wanted to do. And after a while, all that stuff does catch up with you.
What was rehab like for you?
It was good. It was very cathartic. I think the main reason, I'd established in my mind that I was finished with all that stuff. And the main reason really, my thinking, at least at the time, for going to rehab was just to get away from everybody and just have a month where I could get my head straight. And that's exactly what rehab did for me. And it gave me some insight into a lot of other things, because I went in not fighting it, sort of surrendered to it, as the saying goes, and sort of just went in and open-mindedly looking at what it had to offer. And it was good. It was a healthy... whatever it was, 30 days or something. And I did. I got a firm grasp on what I needed to be doing, and that I was really done sort of you know, with that sort of merry-go-round of drugs and alcohol, that sort of roller coaster. You know.
Is it hard being around, you know, everybody else doing it? Because you're still doing the rock and roll, you just didn't have the rock and roll lifestyle.
No, the lifestyle is the same. I'm just not strung out. You know?
But you don't even smoke cigarettes anymore.
I haven't so far.
Well done.
Still chewing the gum. But no, I have to hang out in the same kind of environment because it makes me feel comfortable. So no, I haven't changed much. I've just sort of dropped being a prisoner of all these sort of addictions that I had going on.
Okay, so sober since 2006, but I guess the most sort of stark physical reminder of everything that you did to yourself was that you've got this, you know, defibrillator in that gives your heart a jolt when it decides, oh God, I've got to give up the ghost.
Well,
how hard does that thing have to work?
Well, it's never really been a problem. It was put in there because it didn't look like I was going to make it. And they thought, well, give them a fighting chance, we'll put that in there. And especially if I was to fall off the wagon, which I did. But I never had a problem with it. The only time I had any issue with it was I did some shows with Michael Jackson in 2001, and I just had that thing put in, and I'd forgot to mention, it didn't even occur to me to mention to the doctor that my heart rate goes through the roof when I get on stage. There's an adrenaline rush. So I got up there, and this thing was going off, and at first I didn't know what it was. I thought I was standing on a bad ground or something. So it's like, you know, getting, you know, you've seen defibrillators on TV and the sort of impact that they have. Well, it's an internal thing. So it's pretty dramatic, and it did it about 5 times both nights for these 2 shows, right? So anyway, so I went back to LA and we adjusted it, and I haven't had issues with it since. And it's sort of cool, you know, you never know, I could fall off the wagon tomorrow. It'll probably come in handy. But I asked him if I could take it out recently, and he's like, why bother at this point? You've
got 2 young sons. I guess you'd have to be a, you know, do as I say, don't do as I do type of dad, right?
Yeah. We'll get to that. They're too young right now, but I'm sure I'll be crossing both those bridges with both of them at some point in time.
Would you ever want them to read your book? I mean, there's a lot of details in there.
Well, I mean, all things considered, I think when they get to the age where they could read that book, they're not going to be interested. They're going to be too busy with things that they want to do and not really concerned about what Dad did. You know, I'm almost positive of that one, knowing my kids already, the way that they think.
What does your wife think? It must be really hard for her reading all of that stuff.
No, my wife is as crazy as I was.
Oh, you're kidding.
We like to joke that we were like the unofficial Sid and Nancy for a long time. So we both had to get her straight.
So we should expect her autobiography anytime now?
It's quite possible. You know, and I didn't write anything about her in the book because I promised I wouldn't. So that's a whole nother backstory.
When you look at the current rock and roll landscape, what strikes you about it?
A lot of young guys are sort of grabbing onto the sort of fame and success kind of thing first and foremost before they really get their chops together and really sort of understand what rock and roll really is, because that's rock and roll is really something that is such a statement, such a, like when you want to go against the grain and you want to really say something original and you want to do it against all odds, and you've got a certain energy and a certain attitude, and that to me is very rock and roll, and that seems to be lacking in commercial music, especially in commercial rock and roll right now.
You are still a cultural icon. I mean, kids dress up as you at Halloween. You know, you featured in Rihanna's video for Rockstar 101. How important is it to you to, I guess, still be this very obvious, very visible presence on the musical stage, particularly when, you know, we're kind of in a sea now of Pop-Tarts and American Idol rejects?
I think the main thing is I just love being able to get out there and play to people and to be relevant enough to be able to pull an audience and go out and play. That's what I do it for, and that's really the only thing that really matters to me.
Slash, this was a great pleasure meeting you. Thank you so much.
Nice meeting you too.
What energy source has the power?